Are you ready to delve into New York compliance?
Of course, like always.
So
Is
exciting.
this new stuff I don't know about yet?
It should be, unless you're just actively in all the papers all the time.
Well, not New York papers, but we'll see what we got.
Okay. So the first one I got for you is the Trapped at Work Act. And the quick summary is
We're
I know
all guilty.
they have the funniest titles for these bills.
Trap.
Um,
Got it.
So, if signed by the governor, it's already passed through the legislature, but if it's signed, it'll immediately ban most employment promissory notes requiring workers of nearly any type to repay training costs if they leave early, with limited exceptions and fines of $1,000 to $5,000 per worker for violations, which is interesting. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Wait, say that again. So if an employee chooses to leave early,
Yeah, so there's these promissory notes that
yeah,
apparently a lot of employers use to make them repay the cost of training if they leave before a designated period of time.
yeah,
And
which is already kind of illegal anyway.
yeah, it's like I didn't even know it was a thing, but New York's basically banning them for all types of employees as long as the governor signs the bill, which is expected that she will.
It's this feels it's one of those things that like it's already against a regulation because of paycheck deduction law. And it also, I know what's really happening is it's probably more often happening for people who aren't actually employed yet, like on paper. So if you, in way too many businesses, in particular small businesses, will kind of have like, hey, we're going to bring you on for training, but we're not actually going to hire you yet. They have to hire them if they're performing work for the business and in their role they have to be, but some of them try to get around it by saying it's just training, it's not real work. We'll pay for your training, but if that person then leaves and skips out on the training, they're out the money. So they want them to sign something that's saying like, hey, you still have to pay us for this training that you took if you leave or if you don't continue your employment. But the only way that you can really do that is when you're doing some type of a contract rather than a promissory note. And
It specifies that it covers all types of workers from employees, contractors, interns, volunteers, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that's
yeah,
why that makes sense.
so whenever a new regulation like this gets imposed, it's everybody thinks that it's like pro employee, but really all it's doing is combating something that's already happening anyway and probably covered through some other regulation that nobody really pays attention to or isn't enforced all that well. So here's an example of now we have multiple laws that are combating the exact same thing and people are still going to skirt around it anyway. So
That's very true.
the real and so much of this stuff too is like employers don't even realize that it's a regulation. And that is the issue with New York is there's no like, hey, are you on a list of business owners? Here's a new thing you should worry about. So unless you have a really heavy compliance driven HR person, it's not going to come through your payroll regulation. It's not going to come through a payroll system or tech or service. It's only going to come through somebody who is specifically focused on employment law.
Yeah, because even
And
finding these compliance things is difficult.
yeah,
Like,
you're actively going and looking for them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's
So
still
imagine if you're a business owner and you're literally just running your business and there's all this stuff going on. Why would you know?
yeah.
And then you have the business owners who are really concerned about what those regulations are and they want to actually follow them. And then they're like, I don't even know what to look for because I don't know what's going on. So the fact that we are HR people and we're proactively going out there and looking to see like, hey, what are the things coming down the pike people have to worry about? That's when I just see the trends of everything. I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't be doing that anyway. I'm being kind of like broad brushing it, but it just it's just more unnecessary regulation. And really the problem is transparency and people not knowing what they don't know. And they're still gonna just not do it anyway.
Yeah, because they don't know it exists, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's so
And
hard
now
to
they're
find.
violating two different regulations.
Yeah, no,
using payroll deductions if that's a thing. Again, it depends on the circumstances of if they're hired already, what they're taking out of wages, but they'll get fines and penalties now based on both of these things just because they don't know it exists.
yeah.
So say it again, what does it actually say if they do a promissory note?
They can face $1,000 to $5,000 in fines per worker, and workers can recover attorney fees if they're sued.
That's if they issue a promissory note, or if they issue one and the employee leaves and they make them pay.
So, wait, can you ask that question again?
Yeah, I think I asked it
My
wrong.
brain is slowing.
I think I said the same thing twice. So just tell me again what it was from the beginning.
Okay. So the New York's Trapped at Work Act, if signed by governor, will immediately ban most employment promissory notes requiring workers of nearly any type to repay training costs if they leave early, with limited exceptions and fines from $1,000 to $5,000 per worker for violations. So basically, if they issue illegal promissory notes, they would be subject to fines.
It is kind of like a broad coverage to make sure it's not happening. The question again is, how are they going to know about it?
Yeah,
I guess they have to tune into us.
I mean, I guess it would be on the employee to probably report the employer in that situation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
does it say, is this through, does it say what, it's a New York regulation?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it have a date on it?
It's just if it's signed, it would be immediately effective. It's already passed through the legislature, so it's just waiting on the governor to put her name on it.
Okay. So it's the New York State DOL?
Let me pull it up. I had the bill link.
It's probably under wage and hour.
Let me tell you. I'm looking right now. It passed both the state Senate and Assembly. It awaits delivery to Governor Hochul. How do you say her name? Hochul. I'm so sorry.
I made a joke the other day, and it was a good one. I accidentally said Hochul, and I'm like, I just ruined the joke. I said her name wrong. I know what it is.
I don't know a lot about her, but there's a lot of interesting laws going through the New York legislature right now. So I'm curious to see where she lands on some of them. But
there's a lot of opinions, especially in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Rural, red, upstate New York. Not big.
I would imagine New York City is primarily the ones that decide these types of elections, right? Like the most of the population's up there.
In New York, yeah. It's because I don't know what the percentages are, but most of the boroughs are all blue. And just because the population is so high, it dictates the whole state. But if you break down county by county, it's a lot of red.
So this act would amend the New York labor law.
New York labor law. Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be part of the
DOL.
Yep. I'm curious if it'll translate over to wage. Oh my God, what's it called? I'm totally thinking right now. So the wage and hour, oh my God, what is it called? I can't think of whatever.
Oh, that's me, girl.
There's like packets of industry things that it translates over to specific to wage and hour law, and I cannot think of the word of it right now. But it would likely have to show up in there somewhere. I would love to see all the verbiage about it, because I got to imagine it would be. Does it say public or private employers?
It's all employers.
All employers. That's interesting. Usually there's some type of determination of public versus private, and a lot of times like training questions and reimbursements and like on the job training versus interviewing, that comes into a question a lot with like public employer, like police officers, for example. Mm-hmm. There's like periods of training they have to go through before they're actually employed as a police officer. So it's like one of the exceptions where you don't have to treat them as an employee before they're actually an employee. And then there's unions and there's all this other stuff. But
I think the weird thing is the exceptions to the law. So this is what it says. It expressly permits repayment of sums advanced to the worker unless those sums were used to pay for training related to the worker's employment, repayment for property sold or leased to the worker. So you can still ask for repayment for that.
That's for like in-house maintenance people, like property managers might live on site.
And then agreements tied to sabbatical leave for educational personnel, and then agreements negotiated as part of a collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, with unions.
So those are the 4 exceptions.
We'll see how that one pans out. I don't think it'll really.
It's possible the governor will still amend it a little bit, but
I just wonder how enforced it'll actually be.
Agree. It doesn't even have in the bill. It doesn't even have action set forth to actually enforce it. It doesn't even specify what you can do to actually enforce it. So
yeah, I mean that's pretty typical of New York to put out some mandate and then not have any details whatsoever about like how to go about it. But don't worry, they'll put up a website that'll allow employees to go report it.
It's interesting. I've never heard of this at all, actually. So it was really interesting for me to read it and be like, I didn't know that was a thing that was even going on.
Yeah, it's just.
It reminds me of those scams.
How much do I want my opinion recorded?
I was gonna say it reminds me of those job scams, the modern job scams, where they're like, "Oh, we'll send you $500 for equipment up front," and then they like take that check, and then they somehow bounce it back, and then they take the money back from it. It's very weird. That's what it reminds me of.
I've worked with a lot of blue collar, construction line workers, plumbers, roofers, a lot of that construction, adjacent work. And there's a lot of upfront costs for training and for equipment. And that's where this stuff usually would come into play. And it's, they know it's a cost of doing business, but they don't really care about the cost until the employee disappears or doesn't disappear, but it's really terrible and it was a bad match and they don't want them to work there anymore. And then they want to terminate them and they're like, oh, well, I didn't get the work I wanted out of you. So now you owe me all this money. I'm like, well, no, it's still a cost of doing business regardless of what the outcome is. That's why it's a cost of doing business. Yeah. It's not cost of doing business unless you're mad about it. So
I love that. Imagine that.
Yeah, interesting.
Cost of doing business, unless you're mad about it.
Unless you're mad about it.
Yeah. If you're pissed about it, then whatever goes. Labor law no longer applies.
It's so much of this stuff is so emotional and people don't tie that, especially it goes back to the whole like what is HR thing and people not understanding what HR really is. In the compliance world, which is like my least favorite thing to talk about, but it's because it just comes with everything else. And so much of the understanding of what HR is like the rule police and the policy police. And, you can't do that because it's illegal. You can do whatever you want. Like literally, like you have free will. You can do whatever you want. The question is, what does the repercussion be and how much do you care about that repercussion? What's your risk profile? So,
and that's why rich people are almost invincible. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, it's like I'll pay my way out of it.
Yeah.
Like what's the fine? What's the penalty? Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure that there's a threshold at some point where they're like, oh, if money's important to me, then
yeah,
there's a threshold where it's going to be too much. But unless that penalty isn't large enough. And then sometimes on the other end of the spectrum, and this is actually the problem in small business, like with a very, very small business, like micro business, Main Street, family-owned business, that kind of stuff, the 5-employee, bakery. Sometimes those fines and penalties are so outrageous that they seem just out of the realm of something that would even be real or exist. So, and then again, add on to the fact that they probably don't even know what's happening or what to look for or why it's even an issue. Most small businesses, the vast, like I would say, if I had to put a number on the thousands of small businesses that I've served in my career, 98% of them were just trying to be good people.
Yep.
Like the big stories that we hear, of course, the only stories that you hear are bad ones because that's what gets reported, right? So it seems like there's these like horrible, terrible, unethical business owners out there. It's happening a lot more in corporate than it's happening on Main Street.
100%. Yep.
And most of the time that you do have these circumstances where people have to shut down their businesses or they're being sued or fined, and it sounds like this big, terrible violation of human rights or regulation. It's something they didn't even know was happening.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't mean they didn't make some bad decisions along the way, but most of it is just like they're just trying to get through. Most of these people are not bad people.
I,
And it's, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch type deal. Like it just,
I thought we were about to.
unfortunately,
I thought we were about to get a good lensism.
I know. When I was saying it, I was like, oh my God, don't screw it up.
Squeaky wheel gets the cheese.
I was like, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Is that
I think
correct?
that's it. Yeah.
Okay. I should have like purposely said something else.
You
I love
should.
how you were waiting for it. You're like, here comes an analogy.
I know. I
It's
was like
gonna be
ready to
messed
type
up.
it down. I was like lensism 342. Are you
One
ready
small
for the
mouse
next
spoils
one?
the whole cheese.
One mold spore ruins the whole wheel. I love that for us. Are you ready for the next one? This one's
Let's
really
do it.
interesting, and I also have no idea what it means. So
Oh, well,
I understand it,
let's
but
see if I know what it means.
so this is a new bill that has been passed through the legislature. I can't say words today. Legislature as well. It's waiting to be signed by the governor if she decides to. It would let the state's public employment relations board handle certain private sector labor disputes when the National Labor Board can act, creating potential conflicts with federal law and adding uncertainty for employers. So
Okay.
basically, it lets the New York Labor Board step in for the National Labor Board when they're not able to act, like during a loss of quorum, a lack of members, or whatever. So, pretty interesting. Yeah, I know.
In reality, this probably would never happen.
I agree with you. It just seems
Do you
really
want
strange.
my do you want my Lindsay the HR opinion, or do you want my Lindsay
This
the
is supposed to
psychic
be your
what's about to
unfiltered.
happen opinion?
Give me your unfiltered opinion.
They're both
By the way,
unfiltered.
this is in response to the Trump administration and how, like, I think the National Labor Board has been experiencing a loss of quorum, a lack of members, and they've been unable to respond to some things in a time efficient manner. So this is in response, I believe, to
So
that.
this is a New York
Yes,
push.
it would let the New York Labor Board step
First of
in.
all, I don't know how they.
I know that's the concern. It's like, how could you even do that?
Oh, I can understand from the federal side something being passed that says that states can step in if that's the case, but I don't know how the state, and I mean, maybe they can. I'm not a political whatever,
No,
but
that's actually one of the things that the general discussion about this is like, how can they even do this? Like, that's not like, it's
just
federal.
discussed, like, what's the status of this one?
So it's waiting for the governor to sign it, but
Oh, okay.
there's a pretty decent chance that she would face legal
Well,
challenge.
she would want to. Um, well, so it's in response to the current administration not having quorum. That makes sense. Also, I just, it feels like a really good opportunity also for the Fed to step in, and I don't know about that one.
I know, right? It's very strange. It's like, you would think that if it's something that is typically handled by the National Labor Board, how can the state just decide that they're going to step in when they feel like they should?
Well, Trump's very pro states' rights, so it would make sense that he would be fine with it. What worries me what does worry me? I'm like, I'm worried. I'm trying to figure out why.
I love that.
This is the part where, like, intuitively, whenever, and it's also, I used to feel like what made me like a bad HR person was I would just know, again, the whole intuition thing, I would just know that something was good or something was not good, but I was never good at being like, oh, it's because of regulation 456 in paragraph blah blah blah, and it says this and that. Like, I just knew that somewhere, somehow, it didn't make any sense,
Yeah.
or I knew the why, but I didn't know the noun or the thing or what it was tied to.
Hmm.
And this is one of those moments where I'm like, I know why, but I don't. No, I not no, I don't know why in this case. I know that it doesn't feel right, and I
Well,
know there's gonna be implications, and I'm like, "But why? What is it? What is it gonna be?"
so
And
if you want a little bit more information, um, the bill
I
doesn't.
just heard unsolved mysteries in my head. 876-5353.
The bill doesn't actually explain how they will decide who has the jurisdiction.
That's what
So,
makes me nervous.
yeah, I know, which creates uncertainty. And employers may face conflicting state and federal rules, more legal risk, and less flexibility in negotiations. Because
Conflicting state and federal rules is like the name of the game, especially in New York.
this would make it even worse, though. I mean, could you imagine? Like, it just seems. I don't know. I mean, I get where they're coming from because if the National Labor Board isn't responding in a timely manner, then someone has to resolve.
This is the National Labor Relations Board, right?
Yeah.
So they govern all things. Well, it's kind in New York specifically, it's kind of become this thing where they govern all things non-union too. But traditionally, it's been that they govern all things union. So, um, for example, the NLRA put out some language, God, probably 10 years ago now, which is wild because I can like feel where I was when it was a thing. Um, that specifically targeted like social media policies, and when social media really, I mean, it wasn't when it started blowing up, it's when it started to just become an everyday thing for everybody. And there was a lot of negative employment action being taken on employees that were stating opinions, and it was reflecting on the brand of whoever they worked for, or it was against them. A lot of it happened during 2016 during the presidency and the race because it was just so polarized and divided. And now it feels like child's play, how
I know,
ridiculous it's
right?
gotten.
2016 was nothing.
And I mean, every election year gets a little hairy, but that one in particular on all sides was just crazy. So the this had to be probably 2014 that this was being addressed. But yeah, the new regulations that the NLRA kind of put into place ensured that an employee could discuss any opinion that they want to, um, like, kind of. I'm again broad brushing it for the sake of just this high level conversation and no detail. It depends, but like it essentially said that employees can say whatever they want, kind of whenever they want. Made very specific rules around what happens on work time, off work time. And the result of this conversation was that a lot of social media policies ended up saying specifically that, like, if you are at work, you cannot be using social media. Then obviously that becomes a problem for people at work who need to use social media for
Yeah.
their jobs. And then it was like, I don't know if you remember, but there was a period of time where all of a sudden everybody was like, my opinions are mine only and does not reflect the position of blah
I
blah
do
blah.
remember that. And some people still do that.
They do, yeah. But that was all the result of this change in regulation from the NLRA that is governed by the NLRB, the board and the act. So all of that had to do with unions, and because of the implications of what happens in the course of forming a union or collect, as they're going through that process. So all of a sudden, the NLRA, who used to govern collective bargaining agreements and unions, all of a sudden is stepping outside of their bounds of like, no, 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 we're not talking about when you are a union worker. We're talking now about the process of forming unions. Now it's relating to social media, which dives into on and off business time or company time, which also applies to people who are not forming a union. So all of a sudden, the NLRB had everything to do with non-union work too. And ever since then, it's allowed them to create more and more regulation for all workers, regardless. So it had these like sweep over something which seems, it wasn't minuscule, but over something that was like directly impacted because of the public and social media, all of a sudden turned into the NLRB having a lot more power than they traditionally had before.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I always thought of them as just the union people.
They, I don't know, it felt very sneaky at the time
Yeah,
when
cringe. Yeah,
when it all happened, but they're yeah, they govern like all of work in the name of the potential of forming a union. So basically, they're like, everybody has the right to try to unionize if they want to. So that was kind of like a gateway or a doorway to reaching non-union employees, and it's just kind of expanded since then. Um,
does
so if the
The New York
state
Labor Board do
board,
that?
huh?
Does the New York Labor Board do that as well? Do they make
I don't,
general?
I don't know, honestly.
If
That's
it's New
what
York,
my
I would think
next
so.
that's what my next question was. I know more about the National Labor Relations Board, but I don't know much about how the state board operates. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to know more about that to know what the implications would maybe be. I just know it doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, I also wonder what the implications of. So, if they're making this law, I would imagine there's been issues where the national board isn't responding in, even a reasonable amount of time to some sort of labor dispute. So they feel like they have to make this law in response. But like, I guess my question is, if they don't even have anything in the law specifying how to decide who has jurisdiction, then how are you going to dictate this kind of thing? It just seems
I'll
like,
tell you what I'm also kind of considering. It doesn't make me nervous in a pro-employee state like New York, but well, again, this is coming from New York,
I know.
not from federal. So I keep thinking of it the other way around. If this were coming from federal and they were like, hey, by the way, states can now step in if we don't have quorum,
See, that would
that
be good.
wouldn't
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
that wouldn't be a crazy thing to do, but it would feel like a very intentional thing to do if you're Trump, who's pro state rights. And it also makes me nervous for the states that are not employee friendly, because I could see that being used for harm for
I feel
people.
like New York is trying to use it for good. Like, I feel like they're trying to use it to make sure that labor disputes are getting resolved. But it just seems like a strange way of doing it. I feel like it's almost like putting pressure on the National Labor Board to like get their shit together. You know what I mean? I feel like that's all they're trying to do is just be like, "Hey, you're not doing things in a timely manner. We're going to handle it ourselves if you don't do your job." That's what it kind
Yeah.
of feels like to me.
I gotta read more into that and get more background because I don't even know. Now I'm just interested. I don't even know how that works from a jurisdictional standpoint.
I know. It's
I can
very
see I can see where it comes from as far as the politics of it all, but which is where everything stems from. I love that people don't understand that. I'm like, all of these regulations, it just all comes back down to politics, and it unfortunately really never has anything to do with employment.
Yeah, no. It's never like, "Oh, our employees are doing something that we don't like.
Well, and
Therefore,
it
let's
also
go
comes
make it."
back to why it's so important for HR people or people strategy people to really create a comfortable cultural environment. People are like, oh, well, if there's a regulation in place, then it has to be. Like, says who? It's already terrible. We have, behind California, we have the most number of employment laws in the United States, in New York, we. and there's still egregious things happening.
Oh, of
So,
course.
like,
Yeah.
I've never understood, without getting crazy political about it, I've never understood how people think that the answer to peace is more regulation.
I can see it for some things, but I do think that you get to a point where it's like, how much, like, what's the point of putting more regulations in when we're not following the ones we have?
Well, like
So,
we were just talking about, like the first one that you said, there's
yeah,
already a law that says that you can't do that. People are doing it anyway. So like, well, now we're going to pass this law, so you really can't get around it. And then people will just find a way to get around it. If
literally.
people are actively trying to get around a regulation, they will,
Yeah,
i.e. Trump. I
very.
just, it's, they're not doing anything for the people who are like accidentally violating these rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're only really trying to punish the people who are being egregious about it, but egregious people will find a way around.
Yeah, and so I would say typically the way that someone, okay, so if you're a small business, if you were to be caught violating some sort of law, wouldn't that usually be because a former employee probably reported you?
Probably. It's, I mean, there's audits, there's different things that
Yeah.
happen. And, but in the example, again, in the over thousands of clients I've worked with, the vast majority of them were not audits where things were found. They were disgruntled ex-employees or disgruntled current employees who reported them for some other violation, like, hey, they didn't pay me overtime, hey, I was on salary and I was working 60 hours a week and I think I'm due money. And then after that claim, there's an audit, they come in, then they find all this other information. They interview employees, which I don't think people like know happens. So that if the DOL gets some type of a claim, they come in and they'll interview employees. And what I've seen, again, happen more often than not, you get employees who are like, oh, they're wonderful to work with. They're so flexible. They allow me to take time off. I don't have to punch in and out. They pay me salary, so it makes it easier for everybody. And they're just like hearing all the alarm bells.
Yeah,
Like,
I was gonna say.
oh, you are a receptionist at a medical office who clearly doesn't have any managerial responsibilities. Like, they're going through the checklist of all the things that would make you a salaried exempt employee. And they're saying all of the exact opposite things. They're like, they have me on salary. I can work whenever I want. I can work forever I want. I don't have to punch in and out. And they're like, oh, that's violation. That's violation. That's violation. And it's more often than not, it's employees talking about how easy and great it is to work for this employer. But it's against all of these rules.
So
So,
I guess not to
so
plug up.
typically, it doesn't even have to be like, it could be it's usually a disgruntled ex-employee triggers a claim. DOL comes in. Maybe there's no issue with that disgruntled ex-employee, but now they're having conversations and they
Mm,
find out all these other things that are going on. And there are random audits that have, like, especially more often, and even now, more often in like the immigration space, or, an I-9 audit, somebody will come in. Those tend to be more random. Random. They're not so random now.
Mr. Says anything
Uh,
random.
well, they used to be. Now it's kind of targeted in that arena anyway. Um, so it's, yeah, but to sum up my rambling, in my opinion,
No, I love it.
most of the time it's that there's a prior employee situation or a disgruntled current employee situation, and it just opens the door for 5 million other things to be discovered that maybe people don't even care about and they don't know about.
Yeah.
um and I just want to be clear, I'm not talking about like horrific sexual harassment situations. I'm talking about wage and hour stuff that nobody even knows exists in the state. People are just doing what they think is okay and what everyone's all right with within their relationship with the employee and the employer. 1099 and W-2 is another great example. Oh, well, they didn't want taxes taken out of their check, so we just pay them a 1099. I'm like, excuse me?
You're
Oh,
like,
it works better for everybody. And I'm like, but yeah, it works better for everybody. And the only reason that New York really cares about that They say it's because the employee isn't getting due overtime. But really, what they want is the taxes on that overtime. It all comes down to the money that they get first via the regular wages, then via overtime wages, all of those company taxes that they take off of base wages, not base wages, I'm sorry, gross wages. The state is now losing out on all of those taxes because of that, because they're paid as a 1099. So they might get it from the employee, but at the end of the day, if that employee isn't filing taxes correctly, or if they have their own deductions, or if they have 4 different jobs, those 4 different 1099s, and they have a W-2 over here, like they're not going to recoup that money the same way that they could recoup not just the money, but now the fines, the penalties, the back pay,
Yep.
the all of the other stuff that they're now going to get because of the claim for the employer. And the whole time, again, you're probably talking about the coffee shop on Main Street that has 10 employees that will absolutely be destroyed because they thought that they were being nice to their employer. That is the majority of these things that I see. It's like, I didn't even know, and now I'm fucked.
So, Lindsay, would you say that one of the best ways to protect yourself as a small business is just to like be good to people?
Well, no. I mean,
No, I'm by
please
no,
do.
no, hold on. By that I mean, like to prevent the disgruntled employee situation. Like
Yeah.
if you just,
Well, yeah. Like, it's better.
consciously do HR.
Well, yes.
I
I
love.
like
Did you like
you'll
that
you'll
plug?
lead me to the actual sales pitch here,
That's just
but
did
like
you like the plug?
I think my point though is you can even think that you're
Yeah, you're doing
doing
the right
well
thing.
by people and you could still be at such high risk. So really what you need to do is call Conscious HR.
Yeah. Hi.
We will do an audit before the government's doing an audit and
Mhm.
we'll tell you all of the things that potentially are of risk and then you get to decide where you're at on that risk scale. We are not going to tell you you can't do that. Well, there's probably some things
There
that are
there
if
are
they're
some
going
things.
on that will be like, hey, you can't do that. But for a lot of the wage and hour stuff, a lot of the like baseline compliance regulations, like compliance is important. But if you're doing all of the other things, like treating your employees well, keeping them around and increasing your retention, finding the right people in the first place, offering the benefits that's going to help them when shit hits the fan personally, they're paying them a living wage, like if you're doing all of the things that make an employee want to work for you, usually there will be less issues. You're gonna get the small percent of people that just don't work, or not don't work like for you, I mean like they are not a good fit is the words I should have used. You're gonna get the people who aren't a good fit. Everybody was trying to do the right thing. This person wants a job. You need a person to work there. Doesn't work out. Then you get mentally unhealthy people who, despite you trying to help them through employment, it still does not work. Despite you going through all of the ADA process, the processes that you're required to go to, still, like I keep saying don't work and it's not good terminology, aren't a good fit.
I get
Um,
what you're saying though. I get
it,
it.
it's there is a line between having to run a business and having a good fit of an employee that I think the state makes it very difficult to navigate around. And it's not because you're a terrible person, it's because you need to run a business. And when you have 3 people, 5 people, 20 people, and these regulations, especially in New York, start applying to 1 plus, that is a giant percentage of your work population that you're now out and now you cannot operate. And there's still these regulations that are in place that you are required to meet or do or perform or whatever the situation is, and it's just impossible sometimes. So I think traditionally these like employee thresholds were in place to say like, hey, we understand you have less than 5 employees. This isn't something that's really going to apply to you. But more and more and more, you see these regulations coming out again, particularly in New York. That's like if you have 1 or more employees, and I'm like, if you have 1 employee and they're pregnant, like you need to find somebody else to come and do that work Okay, so that person's pregnant, they're having difficulties, they go out and they are hospitalized or they're at home or they're on bed rest or whatever. So you bring in another person to help in the meantime. Now, pregnant person is healthy and they're back and they have a baby and they're ready to come back to work and they were a great employee and there was no issues. Now, what do you do with the second one? You can't afford the second one, but now you have to terminate them because the first person's back. But now you have to cover yourself and be protected now that you have to terminate the second person. So the good answer is like you hire them on a temp basis or on a contract basis. Or the best thing you can do is go work with an agency who is a temp agency or conscious HR to bring somebody in who's going to cover you for that temporary period. But most small businesses, and again, we're talking one employee. Let's just say that that's the scenario. They don't even know that that's a possibility. So they go and they hire somebody, and then they're like, oh, well, you're gone now because this person's back. And now all of a sudden, number two is pissed off.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you weren't paying them correctly, or you were paying them under the table, or you weren't paying their overtime because
Oh
they were
man.
just temporary. So it's like those are the ways that these things start impacting the micro business. It's because that there is a single business operator who's like, I need to operate the business and I can't do it without this one person. Or again, 5 people, 10 people, like insert the billions of scenarios here. But most of the time it's somebody who's just trying to run their business and they don't know that what they're doing is bad.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh well, this person's back and they're great and I need to bring them back because they were wonderful before and also they were pregnant, so that's a really high risk. Like everyone knows that's risky, right? But they don't think about the fact that maybe they have to terminate the second person now.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh well, it's fine. When I hired them, I told them it was only going to be to cover this. Well, it's funny how many things people forget or don't remember or weren't told or were told differently. It's just crazy.
I never thought about that scenario. That's actually an interesting one. Never thought about how complicated that could get if you were running on a really limited staff.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The last one I have for you though is really gonna send you on a tyrant. I can
Oh
just
God.
tirade. That's what I was gonna say.
Tirade. Oh,
Um,
a tyrant. It's gonna send me to a tyrant.
well, I love that song by Beyonce, so it's in my
Which
head.
one?
Tyrant.
I don't know that one.
You should listen to it.
I'm
Anyway,
like I'm not a not Beyonce fan, but I'm not like a Beyonce fan.
there.
I really love Formation.
Oh my gosh.
That's my favorite
Yes.
one.
The whole Lemonade album was just beautiful. Also, the fact that Jay-Z almost fumbled that bag, I could not believe that. I still can't believe it to this day. I'm like, how do you have Beyonce? Anyway. Okay, so AI in New York State. So this is a quick little summary. New York is currently considering, these are not passed, these are just making their way through the legislature.
You gotta stop saying that word.
I hate that word. That word, me and it are not friends. Okay, so New York is currently considering two major AI related bills: the Artificial Intelligence Consumer Protection Act, which would regulate high risk AI and employment decisions, and then it would require bias prevention, audits, disclosures, and rights for affected individuals. And they're considering the Workforce Stabilization Act, which would require large employers to assess and report AI's job impacts, pay surcharges if layoffs occur due to AI, and fund retraining programs, signaling the state's push to lead in workplace AI regulation.
So first I was like, oh no, and then I was like, oh okay.
Yeah.
The first part of it sounded like, I'm sorry, could you read the start
Yes.
again from the first part?
I'll give you some more details. So the New York Artificial Intelligence Consumer Protection Act would regulate high risk AI used in employment decisions.
Wait, slow down. Would eliminate what?
It would regulate high risk AI used in employment decisions.
Okay. It would regulate it. Got it. Okay.
So developers of AI systems would need to prevent algorithmic discrimination, conduct independent audits, and publicly share key information about their systems.
Okay. I like
So
that.
basically, the open AIs of the world would have to give more information about what they're being trained on, what the models are being trained on.
To who?
To I think the public.
Okay.
I probably need to double check that one, but I'm pretty sure the public. And then employers using AI would have to manage risk through policies, annual impact assessments, public disclosures, and clear notices to individuals affected by AI decisions. And this is the interesting one. So, if AI is used to make a negative employment decision, the individual must be told the reason, allowed to correct data, and given a chance to appeal.
That's not really much different than now. So here's what I'm envisioning. I think the bill is addressing. You said this is for large employers, right? Is that the
There's two
verbiage?
different ones. One is only affecting large employers, and then one I think is a little bit more general. But both of
Okay.
these are still being worked on and pieced together. So
If this is like a company that is paying for some AI driven service to do like recruiting, for example, um, then that is a contracted service that can be like, hey, we've contracted with this company that does AI or this company who uses AI for our recruiting process. So I can see how that could be like now a piece of the compliance process. But what we're not thinking about again is the 10, 15 employee business owner who's using ChatGPT to make business decisions. I wouldn't, I don't know one how that would even be regulated into, because like it's an open, free tool to the public. The
I think
business
they're
owner
less
can literally go on there and be like, oh hey, I have these 3 employees, let me upload their resumes, which one's the best one for this job opening that I posted. Like they could literally just go do that, and then they're gonna just call that employee and go, "Hey, I've decided that you're the best candidate," and they're gonna go, "Cool," or they're gonna go, "Hey, sorry, I decided that you're not the best candidate," or that's pretending that business owners are actually calling people back, which they're not, which is crazy. But it's I if they were accused of using ChatGPT, I don't know. That would just be a really interesting in-depth process to go
well,
through
the
the
fact that they're
approval or
putting
disapproval of it.
regulations on the actual people making the AI is interesting. Like they're saying that the people making the AI, the developers,
Right.
might be required to be
That's
more forthcoming with
yeah, but
information.
that's going to be a disclosure that everyone clicks a button and says, "Okay, I got it." That's what
Yeah,
I
I
mean. I was
know.
like, "Who are
I
they
just think
disclosing
that's
it to?" Because nobody gives it. Nobody even knows. Nobody gives a shit. We all just click the button and move on with our lives. So that's easy for them to implement. They can do it. Hey, by the way, this is blah blah blah. Blah. Like, okay, cool. Nobody cares. Nobody cares until they care. But from the other side of it, from the employer side of it, who are using the AI, who now have to have these policies in place and these processes and these checklists and all this stuff, it's just more administrative burden. It's not a bad thing, but I don't know from a small business perspective when it's like one person or 2 people that are using a chat GPT like AI to make these decisions. I don't know how it would trace back.
I have issues with that. I really think that
That's
you
why we
should
tell people don't use AI to make your
yeah,
employment
you should
decisions.
not be doing that. AI is so biased and we don't know what the biases even
This
are. At
was
least with humans, we
this
know
was my
what
other
it is.
this was my other when you first started talking about it. Literally like 2 days ago, I saw a TikTok that was like me it was just like a POV type thing, and it was like me reacting to um ChatGPT not being biased when it's uploaded with years worth of bias information.
That's what I'm
Like
saying.
people forget these are trained models. They're until we get to an AGI world, AIG. I forget what the new term is, but basically the difference between AI and is it AIG or AGI? Am I making?
No clue.
I don't know. I'm not
I
gonna edit
actually
any of this, so I'm just
researched.
gonna look like an idiot. But whatever the new one is,
Hey, who cares? Me too.
um, whenever we get to that new model, that's when it starts like creating its own things. It becomes more human, which is scary and terrifying, and we're this close if we're not already there. And but AI is just a amalgamation of a bunch of information that already exists that humans came up with. So it's just loaded with all this bias. And it's not like it's being unbiased because it's making its own decisions. Like we're just giving it our opinions and it's consolidating all of them.
Yeah.
So if anything, it might be like evened out, but is it? Like we don't know. Like
Yeah, I
there's
know
no
that's
checks
the
in
problem
place.
with it. And small businesses are one of the few places left in this world that I feel like have a lot of humanity in them.
Hmm.
So if you're going to be a small business, let's do hiring in a very human way. You
Listen,
know?
AI is a wonderful tool, and that's what it is. It's a tool. It's not a decision maker. Like you need to be the decision maker. And what I can see happening very quickly is that people are using AI. Like I use AI all day, every day. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, same.
amazing. But I am the one who's making decisions based on the information that's being presented to me. I also use it in a way where I'm coming up with the idea, the thing I want to do, the information. I'm plugging it in and saying, give me a format, or give me the best way to present this." Or so I'm feeding it the information so that it's giving it back to me in a way that I'm not going to spend 4 hours now trying to organize my thoughts on it. So it should be used as a tool and as an addition to whatever your thoughts and your opinions are. And it's still in that way being driven by a human, so hopefully you're a good human. It all comes back to like
If you're giving it bad prompts, it's
EQ.
going to give you bad information.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. It
I
makes me think of this webinar because all of the webinars now, all of the HR webinars now that I see, almost every single one is AI themed.
Yeah, I
And
know. It's annoying.
I was in this one, and this lady was justifying why it's totally cool and awesome that employers are moving towards using literal AI bots to interview people. And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't think we're there yet. Like, I know one day in my life, we're going to get to the point where I'm going to be interviewing with AI bots for jobs. Okay, I get it. The robots are everywhere.
We are, yeah.
And they're probably going to
Just
take
to say
that job.
we'll get to the point because they're already doing it, just
I know
badly.
they're already doing it. I've had an interview on the phone. This was like last year with, no, not even last year, it's the year before, with an AI robot. And
Hmm.
she said my name and asked me questions and engaged with me. It was the most dystopian thing I've ever encountered in my life. And she was like, yeah, she's like, it's like, it's a good thing. Like, you know, it helps employers cut costs. And I'm like, okay, I get the cutting cost and I get the saving time. But if you were the candidate, Lindsay, okay,
There
and you
are
were interviewing
so
with a
many ways to cut costs in a business.
thank
If
you
we're talking about eliminating the time for interviews is the most effective way of cutting costs, that's
and
crazy.
screening. Well, the truth is, I just want to get rid of
If
recruiters.
most employers would spend more time in the recruiting process, they would have to spend less time in the actual employment process
I
of
completely
dealing with
agree.
issues. Like, uh,
Could you imagine being if you were an employee, a potential employee candidate interviewing with a company, you get on the phone and you think you're going to be talking to a person, and you realize it's an AI robot. Like, does that not make it makes me feel devalued as a person? That you don't think that I'm
well,
worth the
you're
time to
also a
talk
person who values human connection, and
to.
I think what'll happen is it'll just kind of it'll divide us in a interesting way. I can see like eventually there being the companies who are just AI companies,
Yeah.
and then there'll be the human companies, and there'll be kind of these two different workforces.
Well,
There'll
I'm on the
be,
human side. I'll
yeah,
claim sides now. I'm on the human side.
well, unfortunately, the robots will probably do better than we do, but
I know.
monetarily.
I know.
Um, I don't know.
I guess my thing about it is AI is so could be so good. Like it's such a valuable resource, such a good tool. And I can't believe we're already using it for such dystopian, strange choices.
I had a
Weird.
conversation with an electrician a few weeks ago about the whole AI thing. Um, I'm like, especially in blue collar work, like it can't replace
No,
everything we do.
not yet.
He's like, you know what it can do? He's like, I've seen robots come in and, take a image of whatever is going on in the wall And then they go, okay, this tool is needed for this wire, and this fitting is needed for this, and he's like, they can do that. They can take a picture and then physically a robot can be like, wah, 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 and grab a thing and put it on and make it done. He's like, but you know what they can't do? He's like, they can't crawl up into an attic because they already know that the problem is in the attic. They're like, he can't then know that back in 1963, there was an owner 4 times who gave information to this now owner of this house that said, by the way, we couldn't do this and this and this. So instead we did this and this and this. He's like, there was no story. There was no timeline. That wasn't something that was ever recorded. There might be like circumstances that could physically look like something that's going on. He's like, but there's no way to like undo things that have already been done. He's like, so the 60 years worth of family knowledge in this electrician's world and what he's seen in houses and in attics and in basements and in lines outside, he's like, they won't know how to fix that. You can even physically, I was thinking like, oh, well, you can't get like a robot to crawl up into an attic. And he's like, oh, you could do that. I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. Like you could have the physical aspect of it done, but you're not going to have the story, the background, the knowledge of how this thing even got here in the first place. What scares me is instead of fixing those problems, it'll be like, it's cheaper to bulldoze this house. And when cheaper. So it always comes down to money. And when you have giant corporations buying up
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of acres of land, they don't even give a shit about the robot being in the person's house. They're just going to demolish it.
And this is the thing that I don't think people consider when they're opening their little chat GPT is the environmental and community impacts of AI as it is right now. Like if you care about the environment, if you're like one of those people, like the environmental people, you would hate AI because it uses so much water, it uses so much electricity. I would know, as you know, Lindsay, my husband works in this industry. He works in an adjacent industry to AI. These data centers take more power than like a small town, multiple small towns. Like they suck up all the power off the grid. And one of the promises in the early days of all this is like, oh, well, these big power consumers will cause our everyday power bills to be cheaper. But that doesn't happen. The truth is they get power extremely cheap and we're still paying heavy prices for power.
More and more.
Exactly. And
It's why they're actually, it's in particular why upstate New York is about to experience a giant economic change and boom is because of our access to nuclear power.
yeah,
and it's going to be expanding.
Best. But also with nuclear power comes risk. It's the best, it's the cleanest, but it is nuclear power after.
I've learned a little bit more about that being so close actually to the tour. A lot of that is like a false narrative. I mean, it's yes, the whole like nuclear is scary thing.
No, nuclear is not scary. It's just everything comes with a risk. Yeah. Literally everything. So I think nuclear is great actually, and that's where we should go. And you can get
it's the cleanest and easiest. But
yep. Anyway, so yeah, the environmental impacts of AI. There's a lot to consider whenever you're thinking about bringing AI into your business. And honestly, we're probably like, you should ask us. You know what I mean? It's like if you're a small business and you're like, maybe I should just use GPT for all my hiring decisions. Don't. Maybe just come chat.
Just don't. Yeah, it seems like an easy fix, and it can be. And I think depending on the circumstances. Also, I think I pride ourselves on giving people advice what they truly need, regardless if it's with us or not.
Yep.
Like, if you don't need us, I'll tell you don't need us. I'll tell you who else maybe could help you. I'll tell you if ChatGPT is fine. Honestly, like there's circumstances where I'm like, hey, ChatGPT it.
Oh yeah.
I tell you guys all the time, like, hey, just go throw in ChatGPT, see what's up.
ChatGPT is great. It is an amazing resource.
Like I haven't even explored Claude or like any of those other ones, but it's not like bad. It's wonderful actually, but there's very specific reasons why you should not be using it to make employment decisions one way or another.
Yeah.